What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And today I got my review of the game, which after it seems like forever, I finally have completed the game and to give my takes on the things I liked and the things I didn't care for in this review. Now, one thing I want to point out is that this game definitely physically as well as mentally wore me out. It's why it took so long, because I don't remember in recent memory a game that just made me feel like that, where I was just like, not in a sense of I was getting tired of playing it, from a sense of I just didn't want to do it anymore, but just, I don't know, it just physically and mentally wore me out, where I even had to take long breaks from playing it. Sometimes I wouldn't play it for like a week, and it was just from the fact that, man, it took a lot out of me. And it was weird because you might think, oh, it's my first time playing a JRPG, maybe. I'm not used to the genre. For argument's sake, I played something like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 for like 230 hours in a span of under 2 months when it came out. This game, it took about, I don't know, like 100 hours to beat in a span of a little over a month. But man, at 100 hours, it just seemed like it was more like, I don't know, 500 hours, but it really, really at times just dragged me out physically and mentally. And I don't want you to get the impression that, oh, maybe I didn't like it, or maybe it was not as great as it should have been, but I was just physically and mentally exhausted. When I finally beat the game, it was more of a relief than anything else, but thank God it was over. So I can maybe, I don't know, play something else or not have to worry about anything else. And every time I try to turn it back on, I got to moments where it's like I wasn't really the most enthusiastic in terms of playing it. But it definitely was a unique and entertaining experience. But nonetheless, let's get right into this. Let's get right into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and see what I ultimately felt about the game, what I thought worked, what I thought didn't work, and ultimately get a sense of why I think this game is a special game. It's an enjoyable game. It's got a few things that I think they could definitely fix in maybe part 3 to make a more enjoyable game. But nonetheless, here is my overall review starting right now.
All right, let's get this show on the road, people.
I believe the strongest aspect of this entire game that kept me going, even through a few moments where it kind of seemed like it was dragging a little bit, was the party camaraderie, or just the cast of characters you have in your party from the beginning of the game, including the ones you pick up over time. Because let's face it, this is a pretty damn long game, and to keep you going, you need an interesting cast. And Final Fantasy VII definitely has an interesting cast. And what I love about this game is that you never feel alone. You're always with your party members. And it's not just they're just there in the major story bits. They're there in all aspects of the game. Maybe just wandering about with you on the battlefield. Even if they're not in the party of the active battle party itself, they're still in the background participating. Even in side quests, you usually have at least one, maybe two party members participating in the quest. So it's not just, Cloud by himself all the time. I like that. That's I think the strength of this game. It's what made me enjoy a lot of the side quests or the side things apart from the main story. Is I wanted to see the interactions between the characters, and there's a lot of moments in there that could be sorrowful, be a little sad, a little bit happy, a little bit funny. Sometimes maybe a little bit too weird for my own liking, but nonetheless, you get a mixture of emotions and so many things that happen that I really enjoyed seeing. I get to see characters sometimes in a brand new light. The irony being is, while obviously this is a remake and I'm expecting to see and enjoy a lot of the famous moments from the story, I think the moments I really enjoyed the most, a lot of them had really nothing to do with the major aspects of the story. It's just the side things, the little things on the side, and just seeing how these weird, unique interactions and how characters would partake upon them and how they would interact with each other. And as I said before, when you got a really enjoyable cast, it can make even a few moments in a game that may seem to be slogging a little bit where you want something to happen, it can make them that much more manageable. I usually say that about soundtracks, which once again, if you don't already know, the soundtrack is amazing in this game. Soundtracks can make you get through a lot of hard parts in the section. I like a good soundtrack, but having a great cast of characters easily made a lot of sections that maybe I wasn't the most enthusiastic to do because of the overwhelming size of this game, made it that much more manageable to get through. Because as I said before, I like having my teammates with me. It's a great feeling to have, whether they're just in battle, or we're just wandering about, or we're just flying about in our chocobos. It was definitely something that I really love, and I think it's definitely, in my opinion, the best part. And I think the next Final Fantasy game that comes out, in terms of a brand new one, not like the part 3 of this thing, is definitely got a lot to live up to in that aspect. In terms of mini games, I don't think I have to go too much into this, but I think I speak for a lot of people. Queen's Blood is definitely an amazing addition to this game, and it's very addicting. It's kind of reminded me a lot how Gwent was in Witcher 3, where it's just like it's a game within a game, and I think it's become so popular that it's probably going to be its own game eventually. But it's just, the thing about mini games, I've never been the craziest about mini games, but as long as they're fun and entertaining, I don't mind them. And this game, it's not just fun and entertaining, it's addicting, and you could just be lost hours playing and competing. And I definitely can see a future of having us play against other players in the future if they were smart, knowing how a lot of people like Queen's Blood. So definitely one of the great additions to this game. The battle system is mostly the same as the original one remake, but it does have one big addition that I absolutely love, and it's the symmetry attacks. And I absolutely love the symmetry attacks in this game. I think they are some of the coolest things they could have done. And it's gotten to a point now where I feel like whatever the next Final Fantasy, brand new Final Fantasy game comes out, like Final Fantasy 17, whenever that may be, I feel like they gotta include some version of the symmetry attacks because they are so cool to do. I personally like the one between Aerith and Tifa the best, but the Yuffie ones are really good as well, and they're just cool to do. Nothing's more satisfying than being in a tough battle and you all of a sudden have this symmetry to do that basically gets you in a tight spot and bails you out, and you win in a very cool and stylish fashion. It looks cool, it's effective, and as you bond more with your party and team members, you get more impressive and dangerous symmetry attacks. And I just think this was an excellent addition to an already interesting battle system that I definitely further enjoy, and I'd like to see it return more in Final Fantasy as we move forward. The world looks amazing in Final Fantasy VII, whether you're walking in the Gold Saucer or just exploring the area around Corel or just going in Gongaga. Wherever you're going in the world of Final Fantasy VII, it looks big, massive, well detailed. It's amazing to just kind of compare to how a lot of these areas looked in the original to how they look now, and it's sometimes mind-boggling to see just how much detail they put in a lot of things. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted about how just impressive this is. And I always say to myself, I can only imagine what my 7 or 8 year old self would say, seeing what I experienced back then playing the original one and seeing how a lot of these areas look today, because it is just absolutely just mind-boggling. And I really love the massive amount of detail put in the environment, the areas, or just the people walking around. A lot of these areas, they feel so much life in them, and you can just be mesmerized just staring in the background, looking at like the whole overlook of an entire area, and just be like, damn, like you really feel like you're in a massive world. Compared to how Remake Part 1 was, this is just night and day, and really gives a sense of the scale of just how big the world of Final Fantasy VII really is. But now that I've gotten through the parts I did like, now I got to get to the parts I didn't like. And when I say I didn't like, it's not so much that I hated them or they're terrible or bad, just things that I feel like they could have done a little bit better. And I made a video about a month or a few weeks before the game came out about some of my things that I was a little bit worried about. And my biggest worry from a gameplay perspective was just because of how I remember the Part 1 was. In terms of this going to be a massive big game, my biggest fear was I was worried about how much overusage of things that you could call either, extra content or padding, or just scenes I like to say that don't offer too much value. They're just there to extend the game's time. And while there are a lot of moments in the game I really did enjoy that did get extended, there's a lot of other moments I feel like they didn't really need it. I think the crux of these problems actually happened in the whole, I believe, chapter with the Costa del Sol, where basically, I'm going to do a comparison. In the original one, you just arrived on the beach, you had a few moments there, and then you're basically leaving the city basically as soon as you get there. Well, here it's done a lot differently, where I know a lot of people are going to still want to see their beach sequence with, like, Aerith and Tifa, but I'm just like, you could have done that in a cutscene. Did you really have to force me to do all these mini games with 2 different parties and basically force me to go through all this stuff just to get to the main point of the chapter until I move out of the town? And the problem I have with that is that there's a lot of mini games in this game. Now, I'm not saying all the mini games are bad. Like, for instance, this one I didn't mind too much because it reminded me of Rocket League. But the problem is that these ones I'm forced to basically play at least once just to get through the chapter. And you might be thinking, well, they're not the worst things in the world. Yeah, but the problem is there's so many mini games, and then you ask the one question, well, damn, if you know how the story goes, I haven't even got to the hub of the mini games, and that is the gold saucer, and I'm already being waterboarded with mini games. I just feel like they could have taken out a lot of these mini games and just put other things in there that might be interesting. Because I'm sorry, as much as I like, interacting and playing with Tifa or Aerith, I don't honestly want to be wasting my time doing Segway challenges for distance and getting stuff like that. That's not interesting for me personally. And just to me, that's just extra content that I really didn't need. And I think it just weighs down the game a little bit because I don't think it needed to be this bloated, honestly. I like a lot of aspects of it. I like a lot of the side quests and stuff. But the problem here is that there's so many just extracurricular moments that I really don't need, that if they weren't there, I think the experience is so much more better. And what sucks is because I think the biggest problem overall I have so far with both Part 1 and Part 2 is the phrase less is more, because I feel like a lot of moments in this game, they overstay their welcome. Like, they're fine, but the problem is they don't like solve them. They keep overextending it, they keep dragging it on, and it kind of loses its value and impact. If it just told the whole main point, got to the point, it would have been so much better. I get extending things, but some things just aren't worth dragging it out. Some of the side quests, and as I say before, they're a lot better than, let's say, comparison than Final Fantasy 16 side quest. But like, there are a few that are the most interesting ones in World War II. Like this chicken one, which, let's just be honest, nobody wanted to do this one, especially when this old lady basically pulls the biggest crime of the entire game.
Allow me to whip you up some of Grandma Kazra's famous grilled chicken. Say goodnight, Pipperly.
Yeah, I vote justice for Pipperly immediately. But getting back to this, another thing was, you could play as different characters, and I didn't have a problem with that. I just feel like sometimes it just really isn't necessary. I get it for a moment, and I don't think too many of them overstayed their welcome. Like, I didn't mind playing as Red 13 or Tifa or something like that, but most of them is just outside of a little gimmick of a little thing they can do. The only one I didn't care for at all was Kate Sif. I definitely did not. That one really just screamed. We just had to have something just for him. But let's just be honest, not everyone wants to play as everyone, and some people just aren't interesting. And I'm sorry, his whole dynamic just wasn't something that was fun. But overall, it didn't really bother me too much. I enjoyed seeing other characters' perspectives, but some of them just really weren't worth playing in the first place. I think the main crux I have, he said main negative I had with this game, is just the fact that I kept asking myself this question, because as I stated earlier, this game mentally and physically wore me down. I kept telling myself, man, I think I could beat the original Final Fantasy VII quicker than I could beat this game, and this is just part 2 or 3, and that just goes back to my point. I feel like the one thing the people making this game don't get is that not every single moment needs to be extended. Some moments are just fine the way they were. Some do, and I get it and understand it. And they do some moments really well. They get extended, but some, it's like they keep dragging it out, and it loses the effect, and it kind of gets to the point where you're just kind of getting a little bit sick of it. You love what you're doing, but it's like, let's pull the plug a little bit. It's raining a little bit, and I feel like they just need to cut off some of the fat, and I feel like it would make this game so much more enjoyable and not sometimes feeling a little bit tedious. But overall, I deeply enjoyed this game. As I said, it definitely wore me out. It was a relief when I finally beat it, just so I can finally complete it and over, and I guess wait, well, I don't know, 3 or 4 years to the next part. But I love the whole party. I love the group. I love interacting, seeing the whole team together and then interacting with each other. Because as I said, the world of Final Fantasy VII is definitely an interesting world, and the characters are definitely awesome. And honestly, I think I've even maybe fallen in love with new characters that I didn't even care too much about in the original Final Fantasy VII. I think Yuffie definitely has gone up my list because inadvertently I've actually found her. She's got a really good singing voice, as I just showed earlier, and she's definitely got a lot of great funny moments, and I definitely can understand and empathize with her. I still a little bit bummed out that we couldn't get more out of Sid and Vincent, but I get it. They wanted to focus on a few other characters at a time. They're obviously going to get their due in part 3, but we did get to see them, and they're there in a few scenes. But overall, I believe the strength of this game, the thing that made me keep going and sticking with it, even though at times maybe it was getting a little bit bored or feeling tedious, was definitely its cast. And, you know, everyone's got their favorite cast in Final Fantasy games. I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy VII is definitely really high, if not #1 on my list. It's a very enjoyable cast, and when you got an enjoyable cast in a JRPG game, you're definitely going to be here in the long haul. But at the end of the day, it was definitely worth the wait, worth my time, worth the money. But now I can finally rest and relax and not to worry about this game. And unfortunately, I got to get ready because I got more DLC with Final Fantasy 16 DLC right in the corner. So I'm definitely not done with Final Fantasy for the year by any sort of measure. It's going to be a while before I get back on this game and try to do the other modes like hard mode and maybe try to possibly get all the trophies. But nonetheless, my journey for now is over. I deeply enjoyed Rebirth. I definitely do recommend it. But that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. How do you feel about Rebirth? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Were there parts that really resonated with you or parts you wished maybe been a little bit different? Let me know down in the comment section down below. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. And hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later.
That
Peace.
wasn't so bad.